Hi, everybody. Um, I have a lot of thoughts in my head. I don't really know where to go and where to start. So if you have questions, let me know. I'm a founding member of this organization called the Chicago Inclusion Project in Chicago, which seeks to level the playing field for women and people of color, LGBTQ, in the arts and media. And I primarily work with South Asian and Middle Eastern Manasa folks. And when I came out to LA, I got involved in that movement, which led me to Black Lives Matter very quickly. So one of the things they're working on is Black Lives Matter has sort of offshoots. One of the offshoots is reform LA jails, which is something that Black Lives Matter has actually, they just won 50% of the goal, which was to get a measure on the ballot to remove a $3.5 billion jail, which would be the world's largest jail. That's not a hyperbole. It'd be the world's largest jail in Los Angeles County. Through 2 years of activism, we won, and that jail will not be built. So now the next thing we need to do, the next goal for Black Lives Matter, and particularly the Reform LA Jails movement, is what to do with those funds, with that $3.5 billion bail. So one of the first things is to campaign to remove the DA, Jackie Lacey, who is horrible. You can Google why. So remove Jackie Lacey from as the DA, and to spend that money on I wish I was prepared with the URL. I'm sure someone has it. They can put it in the chat. I think it's peoplesbudgetofla.com or.
Behzad, we can also include any links that you'd like afterwards. So just send it to me and we'll put up a big link list.
It's something like peoplesbudgetofla.com, something like that. But to show what we can do with that money to tag it for other things. So there's that. The other thing is cleaning up the narrative. Okay, about protests and what's happening. I was at the protest on Saturday. I have a lot of footage. I actually have a 6-minute video on my Instagram page, which shows what was actually happening at the protest. But one of the big things that we need to clear up the narrative is that the looters are not the protesters and the protesters are not the looters. Aside from that, the protesters are not looting and the looters are not protesting. So there's that narrative. The other narrative is, even if the protesters were looting, and even if there was something that is not the equivalent to 601 Black men have been killed by the police in Los Angeles County alone, and there's been 0 convictions. 601 Black men have been killed in Los Angeles alone by the police, and there has been 0 convictions. So we need to, we're fighting 2 battles at once, and it gets confusing. And I think we need to help clear that up in all of our social circles. The fact that the one battle is that we're not doing the loading and the looters aren't doing the protesting, and the other battle is, but also don't even get mad about the CVS that's burning that's gonna get an insurance check. Please be mad about what's actually happening. So there's that double thing. And finally, to remember, there are organized protests by Black Lives Matter and their offshoots. Those offshoots, and when I say offshoots, I mean organizations that aren't necessarily from them, but support them and are actively plugged into their organization. Those are We Inspire Justice. Those are Initiate Justice, Build Power, White People for Black Lives. There's a lot of these organizations. If you're not seeing a protest that is associated to that, I'm not saying don't go or encouraging you not to go. Protest in the way you want to protest, but I am saying be aware. There might not be protest leaders there who understand de-escalation and how to deal with bail and how to deal with police and how to get people going and how to know how to gather. Leading a protest is not a walk in the park. And if there are actual leaders there, like Melina Abdullah at a protest, then we know that there's going to be some sort of organization, some sort of leadership to sort of keep us safe and de-escalate things. If you're going to a willy-nilly protest, it's a willy-nilly protest. I'm not saying don't go, but just be aware of what you're going to. Do you have any questions? I don't really know where to go. I have so much going on in here. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm unmuting myself. All right, a couple of quick things. Guys, the chat is not where you're gonna get your questions answered. So if you have questions, please, please, please put them in the Q&A, number one. And Sureka Parachuri is going to be moderating that. She'll be pulling out the questions because you'll be asking the same kind of questions over and over. We'll make sure that we get the right questions out. Let's talk about protest etiquette. Let's talk about, so what if you're a first-time protester? what are things, you gave some really concrete things about, hey, you know, find these from these organizations. What should you be prepared for? Because I've been hearing about, you know, rubber bullets, batons, getting hit, like you said, jail. What are the things you should be prepared with?
Let me tell you some things that happened on Saturday that no one's talking about. I was on the front line. I think you don't have to believe in this, but one of the things I believe is that all the non-black bodies should be on the front line, because the police are going to be a lot less concerned, a lot more concerned about hurting your body than they are a black body, as we know. So we're on the front line. These were some things that the cops will do and be prepared to do. One, they will aim their gun at you in your face, and then when you sort of cower and scream, they'll laugh at you. They'll shoot out white power signs. They will pull your mask down, mace you, pull your mask back up so the mace gets stuck in your mask. These are 3 things I saw within 3 feet of me. I have recordings of. The other thing they do, and this is really insidious, they put on the front line of the police all their black and brown cops, and all the white cops go to the back. Officer Austin goes to the back, and then the front line is Abu Bakr, Vasquez, Hernandez, Avila. And it's insidious on both accounts, because the first thing it's saying is if you want to get to us white people, you got to go through your own kind. And the other thing that's insidious about it is it's saying we're protected. We put them on they're the pawns. If it was a chessboard, they're literally making the people of color cops the pawns. So it's a lot of just insidious action. And finally, this is the thing they do. They will trap you in, give you a command that you cannot adhere to, and then punish you for it, which is what happened to us. So we were trapped in a 2-block radius on either side. So 2 blocks here, 2 blocks there, 2 blocks here, and 2 blocks there, like a plus sign. And there were cops at each level blocking us in. And then they would scream at us to leave. But we couldn't leave because we were blocked in. At that moment, they called a curfew for 30 minutes from there. So we have a curfew in 30 minutes and we're blocked in, and then we can't leave, and then they're screaming us to leave. So they're saying we're not following directions. That's when they hit us with tear gas. That's when they hit us with rubber bullets. That's when they do all these things. So there's a lot of these things you have to just stay prepared. Make sure you write down phone numbers on your arm for someone you can call for bail. Someone you can call for, what I do is I have one person that has an email with everything in there. My lawyer's number, my bail number, what do I need, where the secret key is to feed my cat if I don't come home for a couple days, like all these things. Put that in one email, send it to one person, and make sure that person will answer their phone within the 24 hours that you go to a protest, because you're only going to get your one call, and make sure that person can handle everything, and then that person can call the people they need to call. Write that number on your arm. Make sure you have your body covered, and make sure you have like meeting spots.
One last question. Mira Simban actually had a really good question that I wanted to get to. She asked, are there protests that they can take the children to?
Yes. Here's the thing. On Saturday, from 12 o'clock to 3:30, the protests were incredibly peaceful. It wasn't until about 3:45 when the police started the violence that it became violent. So there are marches and things like that, right? So what I would do if I was the person, they always start, if it's a Black Lives Matter organized protest, it always starts with a gathering, a rally, where there are speeches, where there are performances, where there are song and dance, where there are prayers. You can bring your children to that. They're usually in a park. Today, as we speak, there was one in front of Mayor Garcetti's house on 605 South Irving. So you bring your children to that, have them be a part of that civil action. That's great. When we start marching and you start to see police action, I would leave if you had children, in my opinion. I'm not a father, but if I was, that's when I would leave. Once I see police presence, once I see the mobilization, that's when I would leave, because they will instigate the violence. They will. They've done it every time. I've been protesting for over a decade, and that's what they do.